Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Global. We'll get you the top stories from India and the region. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. And for news from rest of the world, I'm joined by my colleague Jagriti Dave from Washington, D.C. Good to have you with us, Jagriti.
Good morning, Shubhendu. It's 10 a.m. here in Washington, 3 in the afternoon across Central Europe. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris introduces her running mate Tim Walz to the American people. And Britain braces for more riots. We'll cross to our correspondents around the world. But first, let's get the headlines.
Bangladesh's new interim government head and Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus, en route from Paris to Dhaka, says let's make the best use of the new victory. United Kingdom on alert, braces for more riots across the country, over 400 arrested. UK Prime Minister vows action amid anti-immigration protests. And in a major setback, Vinesh Phogat disqualified from Paris Olympics ahead of gold medal wrestling bout. Prime Minister Modi asks Indian Olympic Association to lodge protests. In Bangladesh on Tuesday night, a meeting was held at Bongo Bhavan among President Mohammad Shahabuddin, chiefs of the armed forces and coordinators of the anti-discrimination student movement. It was decided to make Nobel Peace Prize laureate Muhammad Yunus the head of the interim government. Meanwhile, a major reshuffle at the top level in the army and Bangladeshi police force has also been reported. Bangladesh Army Chief on Wednesday said that a new interim government is to be sworn in on Thursday evening after Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus returns to the country. Muhammad Yunus is headed to Dhaka from Paris, amid which the troops have been deployed across the country for enhanced security, and work on restoring police force is also underway. Yunus was appointed by Bangladesh President Mohammad Shahabuddin after meetings held with student leaders and chiefs of the military services. And Nobel laureate, head of Bangladesh's interim government, Muhammad Yunus, has said he looks forward to returning to the country and prepare its future after recent protests forced the Prime Minister to leave. Talking to media at Paris airport, Yunus said he looked forward to going back to Bangladesh and see what's happening and how they can organize themselves to get out of the trouble that the nation is in. Non-essential staff and families from High Commission of India in Dhaka have returned to India on Wednesday via commercial flight. Indian diplomats and officials continue to work at the High Commission of India in Dhaka that remains functional. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar on Tuesday said India is looking forward for situation to stabilize. And DD India correspondent Amritpal Singh joins us live from New Delhi with more. Amrit, what are you learning about the situation of unrest in Bangladesh as of now?
Well, the situation in Dhaka, Shubhendu, is slowly improving, though there are crowds still out on the streets, but not in the numbers that we saw on August 5th when the so-called coup happened and when Sheikh Hasina had to flee. And then we know what happened in the aftermath, the vandalizing and ransacking of the Prime Minister's official residence, etc. That kind of a situation has calmed down, but things are still very, very tense. People are out on the streets. I think the students' movement, Students Against Discrimination, though it's part of the consultation process and is constantly meeting the president, the army chief, the army commanders, etc., and they are very much a part of the government formation. In fact, Muhammad Yunus was their choice, but they still want to keep the street part with them because they don't want to negotiate from a position of weakness. So their cadres are still out on the streets. The army is appealing to the students and the protesters to go back, to people to go back. And outside Dhaka also there is considerable tension in and around in the hinterland as well. So that's what the situation on the ground in terms of law and order is, Shubhendu.
Okay, and being the closest neighbor and development partner of Bangladesh, how is India looking at the evolving situation?
Well, India is deeply concerned about the evolving situation there. It remains in continuous touch with the authorities, with the Bangladeshi authorities, essentially the military authorities as of now, because they are the people who control power for the moment, to see that safety and security, one of the minorities of Bangladesh, is intact. Second, the Indians who are working there are students, and the other Indians who are staying and working there, though the bulk of the students have come back. And thirdly, our diplomatic missions. There is the High Commission of India in Dhaka, and there are 4 assistant High Commissions. But the fully functional mission as of now is the Dhaka High Commission. So their safety and security is kept intact. And also India is abreast of the political process which is going on. Because remember, Sheikh Hasina is still in India. So the political process, because India being the closest neighbor, which shares about a 4,000-kilometer land border with Bangladesh, 4 of our states have a land border with them. Actually, for Assam, Mizoram, Meghalaya, Tripura, and Assam, 5 of our states, Shubhendu, northeastern states. So Bangladesh is very, very critical to us from that point of view. So India is closely watching the situation and is constantly reviewing the situation and is in constant touch with the Bangladeshi authorities.
Amritpal, thank you for joining us with those updates. Moving on, US presidential contest is heating up as Democratic presidential candidate picked her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. DD India's Jagrati Dave is in Washington, D.C., gives us more on this and other stories making headlines around the world. Jagrati, what is the road ahead now for the presidential contest?
Well, Subhendu, the transformation of the 2024 presidential race continues with Vice President Kamala Harris unveiling her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, to the nation. Their joint appearance kicked off a multi-day tour of battleground states aimed at introducing Walz to the national stage.
US Vice President Kamala Harris and her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, made their first public appearance together at a rally in Philadelphia on Tuesday.
Since the day that I announced my candidacy,
Harris devoted much of her speech introducing Walz to the audience.
The day that I announced my candidacy, I set out to find a partner who can help build this brighter future. A leader who will help unite our nation and move us forward. A fighter for the middle class. A patriot who believes, as I do, in the extraordinary promise of America. A promise of freedom, opportunity, and justice, not just for some, but for all. So Pennsylvania, I'm here today because I found such a leader.
Tim Walz revved up the crowd for the rigorous campaign to come ahead. He hit the ground running as he went after Trump and his running mate, J.D. Vance.
I got to tell you, I can't wait to debate the guy. I got to tell you, pointing out just an observation of mine that I made. I just have to say it. You know it, you feel it. These guys are creepy and, yes, just weird as hell. That's what you see. That's what you see.
The Trump campaign too didn't waste time launching a counterattack, labeling Walz as a far-left liberal. Vance said Walz was on the far left of the Democratic Party and chosen because Harris was a radical herself.
Obviously, the big news of the day is that Tim Walz has been nominated as the VP, or is now the presumptive nominee, I should say, for Kamala Harris. My view on it is it just highlights how radical Kamala Harris is. This is a person who listened to the Hamas wing of her own party and selecting a nominee. This is a guy who's proposed shipping more manufacturing jobs to China, who wants to make the American people more reliant on garbage energy instead of good American energy, and has proposed defunding the police just as Kamala Harris does.
Walz grew up in a small town in Nebraska. He was a teacher, coach, and union member at a high school before entering politics. He successfully ran for governor in 2018 and was re-elected in 2022. Walz is sync with Kamala on key issues like same-sex marriage and abortion rights. Harris and Walz will spend the next 5 days touring critical battleground states, including Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, and Nevada.
Wow.
Bureau Report, DD India.
Russian President Vladimir Putin on Wednesday condemned Ukraine's invasion of Russia's Kursk region, calling it a serious provocation. According to Russian Defense Ministry, Russian forces successfully repelled a significant Ukrainian incursion into the border region between Russia and Ukraine.
We will have to start with the events in the Kursk region. As you know, the Kiev region has undertaken another large-scale provocation, is conducting indiscriminate shelling with various types of weaponry, including missiles, of civilian buildings, residential buildings, ambulances. Immediately after our meeting, I will have a meeting with the heads of the security agencies, and we will hear another report from colleagues on what is happening in the Kursk region.
Meanwhile, Russian-American dual citizen Ksenia Karelina has pleaded guilty in a Russian court to a charge of treason. State news agency RIA quoted her lawyer as saying on Wednesday, Karelina, who was not included in a major prisoner swap between Russia and the West last week, is on trial in the city of Yekaterinburg over a donation she made in 2022 to a charity supporting Ukraine. Wednesday's hearing was the first in her case since August 1st swap involving 24 prisoners held in 7 countries, which saw 3 American citizens released from Russian jails. RIA said the prosecution and defense would sum up their arguments in Karelina's case on Thursday, and the verdict would be announced the same day. Karelina faces a sentence of up to 12 years to life in prison if convicted.
Updates on the Israel-Hamas conflict now, and Hamas has chosen Yahya Sinwar as its top official in Gaza, as its new political leader. The selection of Sinwar follows Ismail Haniyeh's assassination in Tehran on July 31st. Sinwar has been long viewed by Israeli officials as a strategist with a keen understanding of their society. He's been Hamas's leader in Gaza since 2017, believed to be the mastermind behind Hamas's October 7th attacks. Sinwar hasn't made a recent public appearance, but is thought to have directed military operations along with other commanders. Israel's chief military spokesman says Israel will continue to pursue Sinwar. Our correspondent in Tel Aviv, Sarah Coates, sent us this report.
Well, Hezbollah has actually just released a statement congratulating Yahya Sinwar on this appointment, but he is being slammed here in Israel by the Foreign Minister, Israel Katz. He posted on X shortly after this was announced. He said, the appointment is another reason to bring about his quick elimination and erasing the memory of this organisation from the face of the earth. Now, the 61-year-old is really seen as Israel's most wanted man. He's often referred to as a dead man walking. Now, it's very unclear as to the whereabouts of Yahya Sinwar, whether he's actually underground in these tunnels, this deep labyrinth of tunnels that run right underneath Gaza, or potentially whether he managed to escape and he may potentially be in, say, Egypt or even Qatar. So certainly a lot of controversy around this appointment.
The United States has communicated to Iran and Israel that there is a consensus in West Asia that conflict must not escalate. Speaking after a meeting with Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and their Australian counterparts, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken said talks to achieve a ceasefire and hostage deal on the conflict in Gaza had reached the final stage.
We continue to work intensely to de-escalate tensions in the Middle East and to prevent the spread of conflict. Over the past few days, we've been in constant contact with partners in the region and well beyond. In those conversations, we've heard a clear consensus. No one should escalate this conflict. We've been engaged in intense diplomacy with allies and partners, communicating that message directly to Iran. We communicated that message directly to Israel.
In other news, British police braced for further riots across England. According to reports, at least 30 protests could be witnessed on Wednesday. Police sources say nearly 6,000 officers have been mobilised for maintaining law and order. Further, MPs with offices near the locations of planned demonstrations have already been warned by the Parliament security team about possible disorder. They've been asked to consider working from home. Now, this comes as Prime Minister PM Starmer convened his second emergency coordination meeting with police chiefs on Tuesday. Starmer said he's now expecting substantive sentencing of rioters within days. So far, authorities have made over 400 arrests and filed charges against more than 100 people in relation to the recent riots.
Over 400 people now have been arrested, 100 have been charged, some in relation to online activity, and a number of them are already in court. And I'm now expecting substantive sentencing before the end of this week. That should send a very powerful message to anybody involved, either directly or online, that you are likely to be dealt with within a week, and that nobody should be involving themselves in this disorder.
And with a wave of violence escalating, leader of the right-wing Reform Party, Nigel Farage, has said that he was not responsible for inciting violent protest. In an interview, he added that he himself now faces security concerns as a result of criticism of his comments on Southport killings. He said he believed that different communities in the UK faced different treatment by police on the basis of their race.
At no point in the last week or in the previous 30 years have I ever encouraged the use of violence, have I ever encouraged the use of anti-democratic means. And yet, you know, you get the internet and people saying things on the internet. I have had nothing to do with any form of street violence now or at any point in my career.
An update on the fire in California. Firefighters battling the Park Fire have reported a nearly 6,000-acre growth on Tuesday, totaling to more than 11,000 acres in the past 2 days up the Mill Creek Canyon. A time-lapse on Tuesday showed the blaze intensifying, with smoke billowing in the sky. The Park Fire is the fourth largest wildfire in California's history, according to CAL FIRE numbers. Numerous evacuation orders and warnings remain in effect across 4 different counties, and an individual has been arrested on suspicion of starting the fire. And that's it from me here in Washington. Back to you in the studio, Shubhendu.
Thank you, Jagrati. Have a good day. And still to come on DD India Global. India's President Draupadi Murmu reaches Auckland on a 3-day visit to New Zealand. India celebrates National Handloom Day, a day dedicated to honouring the handloom weavers of the country.
This week on Defense Dynamics, we will decode the most powerful and advanced artillery gun systems, and we'll tell you why India's artillery is world's one of the very best. Designed to strike fear into the hearts of the enemy, India's artillery guns are unparalleled in accuracy and devastating firepower. These Indian systems have redefined the battlefield. This is India's artillery gun system, where strength meets strategy and victory is forged in steel. Watch all exclusive behind-the-scene footage of this amazing piece of artillery technology on DD India this Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. IST.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. India's President Draupadi Murmu has arrived at Auckland today on a 3-day visit to New Zealand, the second leg of a 3-nation tour. On arrival in Auckland, President was received by Todd McClay, Minister of Agriculture, Trade and Forestry, Neeta Bhushan, the High Commissioner of India to New Zealand, among others. President will be travelling to Wellington on Thursday, where she will be meeting the Governor-General of New Zealand, Dam Cindy Kero, Prime Minister Christopher Luxon and Deputy Prime Minister Winston Peters. She will also be addressing New Zealand International Education Conference on Thursday at Wellington. The President will take part in a community reception in Auckland on Friday before leaving for Timor-Leste. Regional cooperation in trade and investment, as well as energy and regional connectivity, gets an impetus in the first BIMSTEC Business Summit in New Delhi. India is the Vishwa Bandhu, more so for BIMSTEC as it looks to overcome the hurdles of free trade agreement, which needs to be sorted out even after 22 rounds of deliberations. Here's more.
The first edition of the BIMSTEC Business Summit over 2 days in New Delhi looked at multiple ways to foster greater regional cooperation among the member states. Robust trade and investment relations among the member countries of the Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation have immense potential, but the Free Trade Agreement or FTA needs immediate attention. India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal highlighted the need for India's role as the Vishwa Bandhu, more so for BIMSTEC.
Maybe we can begin with something small. Maybe we can begin with a preferential trade agreement, if not a full-blown FTA. But let's examine the realistic possibility and move forward on a fast-track basis.
India attaches great importance to the BIMSTEC, which links 5 countries from South Asia, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, India and Sri Lanka, and 2 from Southeast Asia, Myanmar and Thailand. The 2-day deliberation saw over 100 B2B meetings and brought together more than 300 key stakeholders.
The growing importance of digital payments, BIMSTEC member states should consider introduction of digital cross-border payment systems, trade settlements in local currencies and other elements of financial connectivity should also be pursued on a priority basis.
BIMSTEC grouping is home to over 22% of the world's population with a combined GDP of over $5 trillion. BIMSTEC is now the preferred platform for regional cooperation in South Asia. Anil Thomas, DD India, New Delhi.
Let's now turn to other stories making news around the world today. Floods and landslides triggered by heavy rains wreaked chaos across Nepal, killing 7 in Baglung region. While 4 were rescued alive, 8 people, including 6 children, perished in landslides at wards 9 and 10 of Badigad rural municipality on Tuesday morning. Floods and landslides have also disrupted various highways and road sections. Another tragedy struck Nepal as a helicopter crashed near Nuwakot, claiming lives of 4 Chinese tourists and a Nepali pilot. The ill-fated aircraft was en route to Rasuwa region, where it went down. The government of Nepal has formed a 3-member panel to investigate the crash. Authorities have confirmed the deaths, with Nepal police investigating the cause of the crash. And now all the action from the Paris Olympics. In a big blow to India's medal hope, star wrestler Vinesh Phogat has been disqualified on Wednesday from the Paris Olympics after she was found overweight ahead of a women's 50 kg final match. Vinesh became the first Indian woman wrestler to reach the gold medal bout in the event on Tuesday. A statement issued by the Indian Olympic contingent said Phogat had tipped the scales above the 50 kg mark and was disqualified. President of the Indian Olympic Association, IOA, PT Usha, has said that she met Vinesh at the Olympic Village Polyclinic and assured her with all the medical and emotional support.
We are providing Vinesh all medical and emotional support. The Wrestling Federation of India has filed an appeal to UWW to consider the decision to disqualify Vinesh, and IOA is following that up in the strongest possible manner.
And Dr. Dinshaw Pariwala elaborated on the extensive efforts involved in Vinesh Phogat's weight cut process.
The process of weight cut prior to the weight in the morning involves a calculated restriction of food and water, and besides this the athlete needs to sweat, and that sweating is done with sauna and with exercise. The calculation from the nutritionist which is done is athlete specific, and Vinesh's nutritionist felt that the usual amount that she takes is about 1.5 kilograms totally over the day, which gives enough energy for the bouts. However, in the morning we found that despite all of our efforts, her weight was 100 grams over her 50 kilogram weight category, and hence she was disqualified. We had tried all possible drastic measures throughout the night, including cutting off her hair, shortening her clothes, and despite all of this, we could not make that 50 kg weight category.
On 7th August, India celebrates National Handloom Day, a day dedicated to honouring the handloom weavers of the country and their contributions to the rich tapestry of Indian culture and economy. The day not only celebrates the vibrant heritage of Indian textiles, also aims to promote and support the weavers and artisans who have kept these traditions alive for generations. That's all for this edition of DD India Live. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. This app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Global. Namaskar.